Now comes to light a 1998 Loyola University conference where then just a local politician by the name of Barack Obama made it very clear that he said government doesn't work. And listen, you're going to hear the soundbite. He says, I actually believe in redistribution, which is extraordinary. Listen.
I think the trick is figuring out how do we structure government systems that pool resources and hence facilitate some redistribution, because I actually believe in redistribution, at least at a certain level, to make sure that everybody's got a shot.
I don't know why that's so shocking. We heard him say it as recent as 3.5 years ago during the campaign with Joe the Plumber. I mean,
not in so many.
And I think when you spread the wealth around, it's good for everybody. But listen,
it's just interesting that you can go back to 1998 and get the same feeling and the same spirit of what he said a short time ago. And he said you didn't build that. If you're rich and successful, you're not. It's not just because you're smart. All those statements that came out electrified this whole process and made people debate what was the philosophy of the country. And then you realize it was there in 1998.
Now, we've got a choice. We can keep on just borrowing and dump it on our kids. That's option number one.
We can take it from the wealthy and give it to everybody else.
We could have across-the-board tax cuts, tax hikes, what you just talked about.
But it's not income redistribution.
Well, but the problem is, if I am sitting pretty and you've got a waitress who is making minimum wage plus tips, and I can afford it and she can't, what's the big deal for me to say I'm going to pay a little bit more?
Because it inhibits...
that is neighborliness.
The Supreme Court never ventured into the issues of redistribution of wealth. The tragedies of the civil rights movement was because the civil rights movement became so court-focused. I think that there was a tendency to lose track of the political and community organizing and activities on the ground that are able to put together the actual coalitions of power through which you bring about redistributive change.
But we always want to make sure that the playing field is such where everybody who's got a good idea has a chance to succeed. Everybody's got a chance to get financing. Everybody who works hard is able to raise their family. Everybody has an opportunity, if they act responsibly, to send their kids to college and to retire with dignity and respect. And in that sense, that does involve us spreading around opportunity. And yes, it means that people like myself who make a lot more than $250,000 a year pay a little bit more in order to make sure that the waitress who is surviving on a minimum wage and tips still can keep a roof over her head and save enough for her kid to go to college.
People have been beaten down so long, and they feel so betrayed by government.
So it's not surprising then that they get bitter and they cling to guns or religion or antipathy towards people who aren't like them, or a way to explain their frustrations.
You have, however, said you would favor an increase in the capital gains tax. As a matter of fact, you said on CNBC, and I quote, I certainly would not go above what existed under Bill Clinton, which was 28%. It's now 15%. That's almost a doubling if you went to 28%. But actually, Bill Clinton in 1997 signed legislation that dropped the capital gains tax to 20%.
Right.
And George Bush has taken it down to 15%. Right. And in each instance, when the rate dropped, revenues from the tax increased. The government took in more money. And in the 1980s, when the tax was increased to 28%, the revenues went down. So why raise it at all, especially given the fact that 100 million people in this country own stock and would be affected?
Well, Charlie, what I've said is that I would look at raising the capital gains tax for purposes of fairness. I also want to make sure is that our tax system is fair and that we are able to finance health care for Americans who currently don't have it, and that we're able to invest in our infrastructure and invest in our schools. And you can't do that for free, and you can't take out a credit card from the Bank of China in the name of our children and our grandchildren and then say that you're cutting taxes, which is essentially what John McCain has been talking about. And that is irresponsible. I believe in the principle that you pay as you go. And you don't propose tax cuts unless you are closing other tax breaks for individuals, and you don't increase spending unless you're eliminating some spending or you're finding some new revenue. That's how we got an additional $4 trillion worth of debt under George Bush. That is helping to undermine our economy, and it's going to change when I'm President of the United States.
People have to put up with, who cares about what a poor black man has to face every day in a country and a culture controlled by rich white people. Somebody missed that. You got nervous because we got some white members here. I am still in Bible country. I am still in the text. Jesus was a poor black man who lived in a country and who lived in a culture that was controlled by rich white people. The Romans were rich. The Romans were Italians, which means they were European, which means they were white. And the Romans ran everything in Jesus' country. It just came to me within the past few weeks, y'all, why so many folk are hating on Barack Obama. He doesn't fit the model. He ain't white, he ain't rich, and he ain't privileged. Now, I am sick of Negroes who just do not get it. Hillary was not a black boy raised in a single-parent home. Barack was. Barack knows what it means to be a black man living in a country and a culture that is controlled by rich white people.
And I really want to emphasize the word responsibility. I think that whether you are a white executive living out in the suburbs who doesn't want to pay taxes to inner city children, for them to go to school.
Senator Obama, your position on reparations?
I think the reparations we need right here in South Carolina is investment, for example, in our schools.
This idea that the president has of redistributing. I know there are some people in our country who want to have a government take from some to give to the others. They'd like to be the others that are on the receiving end of that and feel that a redistribution model makes sense. I believe instead the role of government is to help those who need help. We're a compassionate people. If there's someone that needs help, we help them. That's why we have a safety net. But then government gets out of the way and allows free people to pursue their dreams and build enterprises. And when they build them, they reap the rewards, they hire other people, and they lift our economy. That's how America works.
Make a difference whether Barack Obama is reelected, or let's say Mitt Romney were the nominee, whether he were elected?
Well, of course, because Barack Obama wants to massively expand the administrative state.
Do you think he's a socialist?
I think he's a Marxist. Read the Communist Manifesto. I know this is painful for people to hear. What do you think Saul Alinsky is? Saul Alinsky was a Marxist. So whether we call it socialism, Marxism, I've been calling it statism.
And you have said if he's reelected, the limitations are off, right? He feels emboldened to do whatever he wants at that point.
Well, I don't know about whatever he wants, but he's pushing the envelope even now before he's elected with.
We ask ourselves, okay, have we reached the tipping point? Just like de Tocqueville said, have we reached the tipping point where more people are comfortable being cared for and taken care of than they are providing for themselves? And we've all feared that this election, or thought this election, was going to give us the answer to that question.